As you may or may not know, prior to me making YouTube videos, I was a website developer and I worked for a couple of different agencies here locally and even had my own business for a while that I eventually ended up selling to another company and then took over their development as part of the deal. So because of this, I've always been interested in how different content management systems worked and the requirements for developing themes and plugins for each one of them. Now, I spent the majority of my time and effort on WordPress, so that's where most of my experience comes from. But for a while now, I've been hearing about another system called Grav and decided to finally take a look and share it with you guys. So just a quick note here, there are multiple ways of deploying Grav. You might download their installer package and deploy it that way, or you might do a one-click install on a managed hosting provider, or in our case, we're going to use Docker as a solution to deploy Grav. This video is sponsored by Tuxedo Computers and the Tuxedo Aura 15 Gen 2. The Aura 15 Gen 2 comes with an AMD Ryzen 7 5700U. That gives you 8 cores and 16 threads while only sipping 15 watts of power. This means that the 49 watt-hour battery will get you hours of productivity while on the go. You'll also get the AMD Radeon RX Vega 8 featuring 8 GPU cores that clock up to 1900 megahertz. The Aura 15 Gen 2 supports up to 64 gigs of dual-channel DDR4 RAM. That way you can have as many Chrome tabs open as you need for your productivity. With a thickness of less than 2 centimeters and only weighing in at 1.65 kilograms, taking the Aura 15 Gen 2 will be a breeze. You'll get a 15.6-inch 1080p screen that covers 95% of the sRGB color space with a peak brightness of 300 nits. The Aura 15 Gen 2 comes loaded with I/O ports, including USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type-C full-feature DisplayPort 1.4, a USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type-A, 2 USB 2.0 Type-A ports, and an HDMI 1.4 port that includes HDCP, 4K UHD at 30 Hz native. You'll also get a gigabit LAN port and a 2-in-1 headphone microphone jack, as well as a micro SD card slot. For more information or to configure your own Aura 15 Gen 2, check out the link in the description. Specifically in this video, we're going to use Linux Server's Grav container. Now, I've been using Linux Server images for years now, and I've never had any issues with any of their setups. So you might be wondering, why would you want to use Grav over other solutions? And the simple answer is that Grav doesn't use a database. Grav uses a flat file configuration instead that generates a folder and file structure to what you may have seen back before content management systems were even a thing, and each page had to be hand coded. The nice thing about Grav is that while it still uses that kind of structure, you don't have to really hand code much of anything anymore. So why is this important? Why is a flat file solution maybe better than something like WordPress or Joomla? Basically, it boils down to the fact that because there's no database, there are no database queries when somebody visits a page or a post on your site, and no database queries theoretically means faster response times to load a page. Also, not having a single point of entry like a database makes it theoretically harder for a bad guy to run a single query on your server to take over your entire site. And I can say that from personal experience, I've had this happen. I've had somebody do a SQL injection on a site and just take over the whole site in just a matter of seconds, where I feel like this might be just a little bit harder to accomplish. Also, from that experience that I've had in the past, it's also why backups are so important. So despite Grav being a flat file CMS or content management system, they've done something interesting and have still managed to incorporate adding additional functionality via plugins like you might see when you're running a system like WordPress or Drupal or something similar. So Grav themes, kind of the overall skin, the aesthetic of your site, is done with Twig templating. Markdown is used for content and data entry. YAML files are used for configuration. And there's a ton more information about Grav over on their website and GitHub repository. And I will have links to that in the description if you want to do more research for yourself. So to get started, of course, you're going to need a Docker server set up and ready to go. With this setup, you can use command line or Portainer to deploy Grav, as the Linux server team has created a CLI command and a Docker compose to deploy the Grav container. If we take a look at their hub.docker.com page, we can see things like the supported architectures, as well as the different ways to deploy their container. Now we're going to use the Docker compose method just for simplicity. Whether you want to use command line or Portainer for this method is completely up to you. So to deploy this via CLI, you'll want to SSH into your Docker server and create a file called docker-compose.yml. You'll want to paste the Docker compose information from the hub.docker.com page that we looked at just a moment ago into the file that you just created, and be sure to edit the things like the time zone and the path where you'd like to install this on your server. You can also change the port that you'll use to access Grav, but be sure to only change the first 80 on the port line and don't change the colon or anything after it. Once you're done with that, you can save and exit the file and then bring up the container by running docker-compose up-d. Now, if you get an error that says that Docker compose can't be found, you can also run docker space compose up-d, and that should also work depending on which version of Docker Compose you have on your system. After just a couple of moments, the container should be up and you should be able to access the install via the IP address and the port of your server, and you should be asked to create an admin account. To deploy Grav using Portainer, you can log into your Portainer instance and create a new stack. Once you've clicked the create a new stack link, you can then give the stack a name. I would probably go with Grav, but whatever you decide to use, make sure to only use lowercase letters or Portainer will have a fit. You can now paste in the Docker Compose information from the hub.docker.com page into the text box below the title in Portainer. And again, be sure to edit the things like the time zone and the path where you'd like to install this on your server. Again, you can change the port that you'll use to access Grav, but be sure to only change the first 80 on the port line and don't change the colon or anything after it. Once you're happy with your stack's configuration, you can bring up the container by clicking the deploy container button. And after a few moments, the container should be up and you should be able to access the install via the IP address and port for your server. And again, you should be asked to now create an admin account. To create an admin account, you can just fill in the details on the page for things like username, password, email, and that sort of thing. And then once you've entered everything, you can click the create user button and you'll be logged into the admin dashboard. One of the things that I really like about the dashboard for Grav is the maintenance block, showing if there are any updates and when the last backup was run, and it also allows you to run a backup from right there. You can also see page view statistics, notifications, and a news feed for information related to Grav. Taking a look at the admin page, down the left side, we'll find a list of links that we'll use to navigate around the admin area of the site. In that menu, we'll find configuration, accounts, pages, plugins, themes, tools, and a logout link. Now, the one thing that we won't find in the left sidebar or in any of the subpages there is how to configure emails. So let's take a look at that before we go too much farther. If you're going to administer your site via command line, the first thing you're going to want to do is SSH into your server and then run the command docker exec-it grav bash. And doing that will allow you to administer inside the container with regards to files and folders that are contained therein. If you're going to use Portainer to administer your site and would still like to change the settings in your server or in your Docker container to be able to use SMTP, what you're going to do is go over to your Portainer instance, find the Grav entry in your containers, and then go over to the Docker exec icon and click that, and then click connect. Then you're going to want to navigate to config/www/user/plugins/email, and then we're going to edit the email.yaml file using nano or whatever your favorite editor happens to be. There are a few lines at the top that you'll want to edit, like from name to and to name, to reflect your setup. So basically just the information that you want to show up in emails that are being sent. Below that, you'll see a section heading called Mailer. By default, Grav is configured to use SendMail to handle sending emails for password resets and that sort of thing. You'll probably want to change this to SMTP instead, just so that it's more likely to go through. And you'll want it to look kind of like this, what I'm showing here on the screen. But if you're not sure or would like other options, I will have links in the description with more information. Now, something interesting that I noticed with regards to email and passwords is that I wasn't able to reset the main admin password via email. So I had to figure out a different method to do that. And let's talk about how to reset a password via command line. So if you're locked out of your admin account, obviously you won't be able to log in and change your password. So you may need to do this via command line. Again, whether you're going to do this via SSH or Portainer, the process is more or less the same. So what you're going to do is go get into your container again via the docker exec command or the little icon in the Portainer instance, and then you'll navigate to config/www/user/accounts and then edit the file with the username that you want to change the password for. Again, I would use Nano, but you can use whichever text editor you want to use in your setup. Then you're going to look for the line that says #password and delete that entire line. And then on the new empty line, you can create a new line that just says password : space and then your new password. And then you can go back to your Grav instance and log in with the password you just entered. And doing this should log you in, but it should also then encrypt the password that you just entered in that file via plain text. So if you were to go back and look at that file again, your plain text password should be changed to a hashed password. So with that said, let's go back to the left menu of the admin area and kind of find out what we've got available to us. Near the top left side of the bar, we'll see a couple of icons. The first icon, which is that kind of double arrow recycle looking icon, will clear the site cache, which is super helpful to do troubleshooting and that sort of thing. If you were, say, building something or you've changed something and you're not seeing that change, clearing the cache can absolutely be a good first step for troubleshooting. The plus sign will take you over to the plugin install page. This is just kind of a quick link to get there, but we'll talk about that in just a moment. The configuration link on the left side will let you do things like set the homepage, the default theme, the time zone, timeout, SSL, session domain, and path, and so much more. The reality is I could probably make an entire video just about the configurations tab of Grav. So I encourage you to dig around and see what you can find. And if you're not sure what something is or what it does, Grav has a ton of documentation on their site. And again, I'll have that linked in the video description. The accounts tab over on that left side again is a section where you'll create accounts for the site and set the permissions of each account. This also includes the ability to change passwords for you and your users, as long as you haven't actually been locked out of your account. If you have, of course, go back to the previous section about manually setting your new password. The pages link is where you're going to create pages and posts for your site. This also includes how you'll configure the page and post structure of the site for subpages, blog posts, and things like that. Something to consider when we're building our pages and posts and things like that is that sometimes the themes will change some of the available settings in the advanced tab. Different themes will have different page templates available to them, and those will be shown here as well. Different page themes will include basically different layouts, styles, and that sort of thing. Now, taking a look at the plugins, the site has a few plugins installed by default to extend the base functionality of the site. But on the plugins page, you'll also be able to enable, disable, and administer the plugins on the site. Now, near the top of the page, there's a link to check for updates, as well as an add button. Now, clicking the add button will take us to a new page that will allow you to quickly look through the repository of available plugins and quickly add them to your site with just a couple of clicks. So most of the plugins on this page are free, but there will be a few commercial plugins that will have a fee associated with them to purchase and license them. Themes, basically, they are the look and feel of your website. It's kind of the foundation of what the viewers of your site will see. And as I mentioned earlier, some themes will add additional page and post types for your content, but it might also add additional configuration options in the admin area of your site in this left menu. To go along with that, plugins may also add additional links in your admin panel for additional administrative functionality. The tools section will allow you to manage your backups, scheduled tasks, view logs and reports, and it will also allow you to install additional Grav packages. After having spent a bit of time with Grav, I do have to say that it's quite a bit more robust than other CMSs are out of the box from what I've tried in the past. And I think I'd like to spend more time to get more familiar with Grav. Let me know in the comment section down below if you've used Grav or if this is something that you would consider now that you've seen this video. What do you like about Grav? What do you not like about Grav? Let me know all of that in the comment section down below. With that said, though, I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video. I do want to thank you for spending a few minutes of your time with me today, and I'll talk to you in the next video.